With all the dark, scary things happening in the world right now, you might be feeling heavy, maybe even hopeless.
But beneath the surface, there's something very powerful happening.
It's an awakening. I'm Jay Pryor, spiritual seeker, life coach, and teacher.
And I'm Megan Lee, a 7th generation seer and medium. We're bringing our gifts to this present moment,
exploring our own awakening and talking with leaders, healers, and visionaries who are helping others wake up as well.
We're also diving into the neuroscience of the woo-woo, exploring how science is finally catching up with the spiritual and helping explain it.
We believe that what we focus on expands and that we are all deeply connected.
Welcome to your awakening. Hello. Welcome to the Wake Up Wave.
Lisa, it's so nice to meet you. I'm really excited to meet you.
Really? That's so sweet. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so thrilled that you would ask me to be on your podcast. So thank you.
Well, we're thrilled that you said yes to be on our podcast. I first heard you on Suzanne Giesman's podcast, who I'm a big fan of. And I'm listening to you, and there was I was telling Megan, I freaked her out at first because I feel like we're probably close in age because you said you were born in the 60s and you grew up in the 70s and 80s.
Yep.
So I was born in 66, and so we grew up in the same time period.
I'm older than you are.
Well, no, you don't have to tell me, but
I just had my birthday last week. But
nice.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. So we have your, I think it'd be fun. So I was just thinking about this today. I was like, how fun would it be if we got like a boomer medium, and then we got your Gen X medium, and we got your millennium medium. And,
technically I'm a boomer, but don't tell anybody that because I identify as a Gen Xer. I'm like
right?
culturally Gen X.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Lisa, will you introduce yourself and tell us anything that you would like to tell us about before we start badgering you with questions?
Sure. Well, I'm a professional psychic, which is such a bizarro thing to say, but it's totally true. And I have been working as a psychic since I was 19. That was back in the 80s. And it was a really weird thing to do back then. I was definitely one of those I see dead people kids, grew up like totally with a full boat of psychic gifts. I grew up just outside of Boston. And, back then it just wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing you could talk about. It wasn't a thing that anyone had any context for or any language for. God bless my hippie parents who didn't drag me to the church and throw holy water on me. But, nobody knew what to do back then. It was like I was told I had a good imagination. And I was like, am I imagining this? I don't know if I am. Like, what does that mean? But I was just seeing things. Seeing angels, seeing ghosts, seeing energy, seeing shadow spirits, the full thing. And, and it just took me a lot of the first 20 years of my life to figure out how to turn it off, how to, what the heck was going on. That's just been the focus of my whole life. So these days I mostly teach and write books, but I had a private practice for a really long time. When I graduated from college, I started working as a psychic, but I quickly learned I didn't have enough skill to really help people. So I went back to school and became a therapist and combined those things together. And then in 1999, I learned Reiki, which back then was still pretty fringy. I've always been a little bit on the fringe and have been doing that now. And I think my work is really about helping train other psychics, healers, and empaths who are having a spiritual opening, who are becoming aware of their gifts. I really like doing that hopefully in a more graceful way than I had to do it. I feel like I did just did it the hard way. And if I can help somebody else not have to do it the hard way, that's a really good day for me. And I just feel like my mission in life is to create an army of healers to go out there and save the world because the world needs saving right about now. And that's my contribution. So these days I teach and write books. I'm working on my 6th book right now. It's a lot of heavy lifting. I'll be really proud of myself when it's done, but at the moment it's a challenge. That's kind of it in a nutshell.
Awesome.
I think you're back.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Yeah.
We can edit.
Okay.
That's good news. Yeah. Well, speaking of your book, I listened to your book first, and it's kind of funny because we were supposed to talk on Monday, and
Mm,
one of the things that I love about your book starts out by saying you're more psychic than you think, right?
mm-hmm.
And on Monday, I had a feeling that we were not going to talk. And then when I was rescheduling, I had a feeling, well, before we talk, I'm gonna actually get the book because I started listening to your book on audio because I'm a person who can learn more usually if I can listen.
Yeah.
And so I listened to your book on audio, but all throughout your book, you have these exercises. And I was like, I need those I need a piece of paper with those exercises on them.
Yeah.
It's just listening to them, you don't get the full, you can't, and it's hard to go back to them and stuff like that. And so I ordered the book through my local bookstore. And on Monday, I was like, I'm going to get the book before we meet. And then I got the book last night.
Oh, that's awesome. I
Yeah.
love that.
So I thought
That's
that was
good.
fantastic.
Yay.
Yay. And one of the things I love about the book and like about you is the whole practical approach. It's really great.
Yeah, I'm very practical for a psychic. I don't know, it's just my nature to be that way. I spent a lot of time in my early life as a martial artist. Just really just wanted to be a Jedi Knight. That's the truth. I was such a geek, and I'm like, I want to be a Jedi Knight when I was a kid. So I studied martial arts, and it just gave me a lot of um a groundedness, which is really good counterpoint to the psychic work, the psychic world. To stay in your body, to be practical, to be grounded is just my nature. And I feel like, I don't know, like, to me, the antidote to fear is knowledge, knowledge and practicality. So I was really trying to not be afraid. It's also why I became a martial artist, because I didn't want to be afraid in the world.
Right.
And the more I know, the more practical it was. So I like literally created a map of the psychic worlds. Like I really like to teach with a structure, with a method. It's just how I operate. And I feel like it's comforting and reassuring to people who are going into this world. And, I mean, not that there's anything wrong with being really woo woo or airy fairy. There's also a place for that, but it's just my nature. And also trying to figure out like, the purposefulness of it. I think these things have a purpose, and they're meant to be used in a practical way.
I agree 100%.
Hmm.
From being that person who has world traveled and lived abroad, you would have had to have seen different types of the psychic awakening in people. How does that structure how you teach that? And do you see a difference in different cultures and their psychic awakening at different times?
Yeah, I think it's a huge part of it. And I would also bring in different generations. So generationally is very different. And it's comforting and makes me happy. Like the newer generations are way, way more open to this. I also think there are way more psychics, so that every generation that comes in is more access to their gifts, but there's just the conversation is much more available right now. Back then, for us Gen Xers, it was very strange. It was like psychic hotlines, and like it was weird, and now it's sort of like normal. There's psychics on TV, there's TikTok psychics. It's like it's pretty normal. And I feel like the cultural thing is very similar too. And it depends on how open the cultures are to these kinds of things, how religious. So religious fundamentalism tends to shut this down as kind of part of it's the devil, or it's not a good idea to do that. And I think all of those factors come into play. Like, how open is it? And at the same time, it tends to sneak through the cracks of whatever is available. So maybe you can't be psychic, but you have women's intuition. You know what I mean? Or I think about whatever opening we leave, that's where it's going to flow in terms of our culture and religion and our generation, whatever cultural context we have where there's an opening. Um, that's a really fascinating topic, actually. I think that would be something kind of, to do a deep dive into someday, like, because it flows into whatever open channel we leave it. That's what I think.
Yeah. Okay. So speaking of when we grew up, you couldn't find, if you're calling 1-800 psychic so and so, right?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they got laughed. Nobody believed in any of it, right?
No.
And so, but as we've come along, people are coming along a lot. And I think there's people who are way curious. And I myself am somebody who, like, I'm always the not psychic on the call right here, or not medium on the call. And one of the things that Megan and I have been talking about, because you and Megan have a lot in common, right? So both of you see gray people, both of you saw dead gray, little
Yeah.
who saw dead people,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
Dead people. Both Megan was that too, and so I've learned a lot from Megan. And we've been talking about all kinds of things, but one of the things that we've been talking about, which when I read your book, I'm like, damn it, because I want to believe that. So if we are all one, and you even talk about Christ consciousness in your book, which I loved. So if we are all one, right? And Megan told me about this yesterday. And one of the things I love is like getting all different perspectives. But if we're all one and God is love and God is light, then how are there dark entities? And like one of the things you say in the book is like, I'm kind of going through the book in my mind, like where you went. And one of them right off the bat is like your do's and don'ts. Like, don't do this stuff.
Don't play with the Ouija board. It's number one on my list.
Ouija board, right? Which,
Yeah.
I mean, most people, your average Joe out there doesn't think that. They just think that's a silly game. They're not going to worry about a Ouija board, right? And so tell me about like how do we, I mean, not that I know from reading your book how I can protect myself, and I'm doing that now, by the way. But if it's, I want to believe it's all love and light. How's that darkness come?
I want to believe that too, but it's just not my experience, And my experience is there's plenty of evil on the planet. I don't have to tell you that. All you have to do is look at the news, or
well, that's for sure.
And the truth is, like, this is an infinite universe. Everything is existing inside of an infinite universe. Are you guys there? Okay.
Yep.
Everything exists inside of an infinite universe, and that means there's something on every point in the continuum, and there's the shadow and there's the light, especially down here. This is a polarized planet, the planet full of polarity. So we have the shadow and light here. We have shadow people, we have light people, we have shadow spirits, we have light spirits. I mean, I'm sure there are dimensions that are only light, but this is not one of them,
right?
And and so there are spirits that are shadowy. I don't know. I just can tell you, like, of all the things, like, I've done so many sessions, over 15,000 individual sessions in my time, which I only know because my publisher made me count, and that was in 2018. So it's probably more than that. But in all the time that I've, I just report back what I see in my sessions. Like, for a long time, I didn't believe in curses. I was like, that's not real. It's just like curses only happen if you believe in them. That's not even a real thing. Till I moved to a town that had a lot of Brazilian immigrants in it. And all I can tell you is do not piss off a Brazilian, because there was this lady there who would just put, for $500, she'd put a curse on you. And then for $500, she'd take it off. It was kind of I think it was a bit of a racket. She was making a lot of money, but those things really impacted people. And people would come into my office and they'd say, I think I have a curse, and I'd be like, I don't believe in that, until I saw like 100 of it. And then I was like, oh, crap, I think this is for real. And I had to figure out what it was. Why did it work? If we go with the idea that we can have healing energy like Reiki, can it also be true that we have the opposite of that? That our intention and our energy can hurt people, right? And I didn't believe in black magic until I saw a ton of it, and continue to. It continues to this day to shock me how often I encounter black magic in the world. And I don't want to. I don't want to believe that's true, but it just is what shows up in my office,
Right.
So for me, it's just a practical reality. And I think a lot of it, comes down to trauma. The worst thing I see day to day is people's trauma, and dealing with people's trauma is no joke, right? And that sometimes that trauma, the traumas that we have, especially childhood traumas, attracts negative spirits or entities around it. Back in the 90s, before I knew better, 1990s, I had no idea what I was doing. I started doing house clearings, space clearings, and I had a friend who's a realtor, and she's like, "Can you come over and I can't sell this house. This house." Every year somebody moves out, and buys it again. It's a mess. Even though it's a gorgeous house. And she's like, I don't know what's going on. It's got weird, creepy energy. Can you come over and look at it? And I was the only psychic she knew. And it just took me on a 10-year journey of doing house clearings and space clearing. And there was no manual. I learned everything the hard way, and I saw some stuff I wish I could unsee. And it also was like a really deep dive into the shadow. So I wish I could say that, there's no such thing as the dark, but it's just not what I have experienced.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad you're here to reiterate. But also, speaking of
Even
the
this book.
shadow, I heard you teach a mystery school.
Yeah.
So I know mystery schools are a lot of times initiatory and called mystery for a reason. But
Mhm.
for the sake of the waking up and people really getting to why would they choose or want a mystery school or seek it versus other occult or healing traditions?
Thank you for that question. I teach a mystery school with my friend Jane, and it's called the Quantum Mystic Mystery School. And my mystery school and all mystery schools are really consciousness raising schools. So, I mean, I think that we're our own mystery. What does it say at the entrance of the mystery school? Know thyself. And I mean, that's the ultimate mystery, is who we are, who we are inside of us. What is our relationship with divine source, with God, and what is the nature of that? That's what the mystery is. And so what it is a consciousness program that helps us elevate our consciousness, helps us know ourselves in deeper ways, and really like working through understanding the conscious mind and our egoic self. We use the chakras to explore what's going on in our conscious mind. In the second year, we work with the subconscious mind and sort of cleaning out and purging and healing the subconscious self. In the third year, we work with the superconscious mind, the higher self mind. And I think that it's a process of inner looking. It's not for the faint of heart, because like we require you do meditation, a meditation practice, and have a spiritual practice. So it's hard work to do all that inner looking, but I don't know what else really helps to raise our consciousness. And, ultimately, like for me, as I've evolved in my own spiritual practice in my own life, I really feel like psychic development is a byproduct of spiritual growth. And, that it's what's really important is the spiritual growth, the personal growth, the healing journey that we're on. Psychic's fun and it's cool and, useful and all those things and for ourselves and to help humanity, but it's not really the end game. The end game is spiritual development, is enlightenment, really. And I feel like and there's an urgency here now because we need to wake up real quick. We're going to save the planet. And I think that we're in this ascension that there's a wave of light washing over our planet that helps people wake up faster, and that if we can get enough people to wake up quickly enough, we can change the course if we're at this real tipping point. Are we going to go down the dark path, or are we going to go down the light path? And the more people wake up, the quicker we go down the light path. And that's what it's really all about. I think everything we're doing is towards that. Everything that I do is in service of that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for existing. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for re-saying that and holding that and offering that. Not only is that what our podcast is about,
Yeah.
it is sometimes as a practitioner, you feel like you're the light in a dark cave,
You
and
are.
you're helping other people
Yeah.
light their lantern, everybody's lantern,
Yes.
woohoo! And then you have them go out into the cave or out of the cave into this dark world, and then you kind of go back into the cave, into the darkness, and you don't always get to see those other practitioners lighting other people's lamps. You don't always get to see that conscience wave that you're tuned into and spirit's telling you is happening, but not then you trust, right? Then you trust that everybody else is doing that. So thank you for for being that and offering that and living that conscious existence so that other people can, when they forget to tune in or are too tired to tune into, that there's still beacons of radios that are tuned in and teaching other people how to tune in and how to be that tune and that they have control of that dial.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, right back at you. Right back at you. Thank you for holding that. And of course, to Wake Up Wave, like podcasts, that's what you guys are doing. And I was like 10 years ago, I think it was 2015, I had this dream, like a dream at night that I had this light in my heart and I like pulled it out of my chest and it was like in my hands, and I gave it to somebody and they gave it to somebody and they gave it to like lit up them and then and this wave of light washed over the world. And that and it wasn't just me, there was all these other people doing that, and that dream changed my life. I remember it. I just remember the feeling of it. And when I woke up, I was like, okay, I'm on a new mission. And that's when I sort of moved out of my private practice and started writing and teaching because I felt like I wanted a way to impact more people. And it's really good to do one-on-one work. I did a lot of that, 25 years of it, but I just had this calling to make more of an impact. And I feel this urgency about it. And I think a lot of people who are on the wake up path also feel that same urgency because, time's ticking and the time is now. It's now, this moment, today, that, we need to wake up quick. And I think that's what we're all here for.
Yeah, I mean, you even framed it in terms of a wave because that's our
Yeah,
whole purpose of our podcast is really that we want to be continuing to feed that light and
yeah,
asking people to shift their focus over on the light versus
right.
all that darkness that's bubbling up, especially in the United States right now.
Yeah.
And the
Um,
distraction of that.
right.
Yes. It's
Mhm.
so easy to let that all drag you down. And I don't know, I think we have to be, and I'm not saying we should dial out of what's going on because I don't think that's good either. We don't want to do the ostrich,
Yeah.
maneuver, but there's some like protecting that we need to do to guard our vibration, to guard like our frequency and what we're consuming. Like doom scrolling is not good for you, we all know that. Like that our keeping our vibe high is really how we can help. That's what I think. Making sure we're guarding that is important because I think too, as we get into higher and higher levels of consciousness, that the outer world is a reflection of our inner state of consciousness. I know I can't change. I don't have control over anything except my own internal state of consciousness. That's all I can do. If I keep myself in that high joy vibration, in that fifth dimensional quantum consciousness, then that's the best. It sort of like impacts other people, whether you mean it to or not. That just people behind you in the supermarket or the people that you're talking to or your kids, like all those things. And if we drop into the fear and the polarity, we just create more of that, you know? And it doesn't mean that I don't have moments of that. I do. But I spend a lot of time every day in the morning, doing what I've got to do to bring my consciousness up and kind of trying to stay there throughout the day.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You've trained a number of practitioners, worldwide. What is one mistake that you see most often, either in beginning or waking up practitioners or practitioners who have been practicing and they are ready to coach? What's one mistake that you readily see and a simple practice that you give them to fix or something that you've been seeing more and more often that you've had to repeat about saying how to do?
I think there's the couple things there. Probably most important is energy hygiene. So making sure that we're really, really taking care of ourselves energetically, that we're grounding, clearing, protecting ourselves, that we're not, courting our clients, that we're not getting kind of smashed up with our clients' energy. Because there's nothing that will burn you out faster and make you quit your job as a healer if you're not practicing good hygiene. So before you start a session, ground, clear, and protect. In between clients, after your day, so we can continue to work without burning out our nervous system, without burning out ourselves. And I think a recent trend that I've been seeing is more and more Reiki practitioners and healers are dealing with people with pretty severe issues. So that didn't used to be true, but I think the medical system and psychiatric system is so broken that people are coming to energy medicine for really serious stuff. And I see a lot of Reiki practitioners that are not prepared for that. What do you do with somebody who's suicidal or psychotic or severely depressed, or severely addicted? I mean, that was just my client list, last week, like that's what I'm getting. And because I have a background as a therapist, I was more prepared to deal with and ethics as well, um, ethics is something that I teach a lot and care a lot about, and I think our people are undertrained in how to respond ethically and reason. Like where do we know it's outside the scope of our practice? How do we ethically manage that when there's such a strong need, right? So I work a lot with helping Reiki people and other energy medicine practitioners know how to survive and stand up. What do you do? There's this heart-stopping moment in a Reiki session where somebody just dumps their trauma, and you're like, I don't know what to do. I'm in over my head. That does not feel good when that happens. So how do we hold our energy field? How do we hold our presence when that's going on? How do we take care of ourselves afterwards? Because I'll tell you, I keep thinking I've heard it all. And then, and then I'm like, oh my God, that hits the new top 10 of the worst things I've ever heard. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
I
I
have
don't
to
want to be
go
in your
like,
top
I have
10.
to go like breathe into a paper bag. And I call them the what the heck is wrong with the world sessions. Where you come out of that session, you're like, what is wrong? What is wrong with humanity? How is that even a thing? So I think we need to train ourselves. We need to be prepared for the dealing with people, the real deep stuff, because we get it more and more. And energetically prepared, psychologically prepared. We need to understand what secondary trauma is and how do we handle that. That's when you get traumatized by other people's trauma. I feel like we've almost become like first responders, like we've become like emergency room doctors and, trauma therapists and who have to see that. And that's our job. Like you said, bringing your light into the dark. That's part of it. And I think people are not always adequately prepared for that. And if you're not, you will be facing it because it's going to walk in your office any minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it occurs in my world, and maybe that's why the awakening is happening right now, is that so much of the generational trauma, the genocide and how we created this country, for example, like so much of that has come bubbling up to the surface that it feels like everybody's dealing with some level of trauma, if not, generational trauma or systemic trauma, things like that. It
Yeah.
just feels like that's what's
Agreed.
going on right now. And maybe this is why this is the time for the light so they can heal that. That's my hope anyway.
Feels like it's sort of a purging process, like and
Yeah.
kind of everything that we've swept under the rugs is now coming out.
Yeah.
And that we can examine it, look at it, heal it, talk about it, sort of belly up to it and just, all right, we're going to handle this and see where we go with it. That's an important part of the work that we're doing right now. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's all coming up to be healed and cleared.
Yeah, most definitely. Speaking of those transitions to be awakened, do you or have you seen the transitions in mobility effect in psychic awakening or gift awakening? And do you think that has a huge impact on awakening burst trauma?
Can you say that question again?
Yeah, absolutely. When or let me rephrase it and put it this way. When when we have
Okay.
transitions, do you feel like those growing up transitions, except for, I don't want to say, like puberty, because it's more like menopause and perimenopause, but as well as
Mhm.
those transitions, In your experience, are those also keys that open psychic abilities, open and awaken empaths, or that we are more aware of those gifts?
And I think we have like spikes in our hormones, you know what I mean? So puberty, childbirth, menopause, spike our hormones, and men have those cycles too, by the way. It's not just women. Women's are more pronounced, but men have them as well. And when we are in those states, we're sort of more permeable, we have more access to the other realms. So that's I know 100% the case. And I think there's a beautiful opportunity there for us to um, deepen our spiritual experience as we shift through those stages of life, and open to greater wisdom at each stage. I think it's definitely a thing.
I felt like so I don't know if you know that I'm a trans person, but I was assigned female at birth. So I was walked through woman's skin until I was 35, and I took testosterone for 18
Mm.
years. And then I went off testosterone about 8 years ago. And I often talk about how when I went off testosterone, I got my lady brain back.
Mm.
And I feel like I am like on testosterone, I was less tuned in.
Mhm.
And I'm making that up. I don't have any basis other than my own experience for that. But it does feel like to me. Now, I mean, I've been a coach for 20 years, and I always, even on testosterone, I definitely would have hits when I'm talking to a client that, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to say something weird, but it just seems like this, you know, this thing is right there for me to say. But since I've been off testosterone, I feel like some of my gifts that I had as a younger person are waking up. And one of the things that Megan and I have been debating about is that when I went off testosterone, I have always identified as non-binary. So I kept all my lady parts. Like I have all my, all my machinery. And so when I went off testosterone, I started my period again, and then 3 years later went through menopause. And going through menopause has been, and that's one of the reasons we're asking this, is like that menopausal shift for me. And I mean, it could just be that going through menopause has you want to be more grounded, or, I don't know what it does, but it definitely, for
Mm.
me, I felt a shift since going through menopause. But I feel like a lot of my gifts from when I was a younger person are waking up a little more. Now, I don't know if that's
That's
because
fascinating.
I have decided that I'm willing to be, because I was somebody, and I still do. I was just one of the things in your book is you're uh, talking about having that knowing when you know something is the truth and figuring out what
Mm.
that hell is. So I have a knowing that when I have a particular feeling coming out of a dream, that dream is a true dream, like it's
Right.
come
It's the
true.
truth. Yeah.
Right, truth. And so when I was a young person, I started having those dreams a lot when I was in my 18, 19, 20-ish. And then I started dreaming that people would die, and then they die. And then I was like, okay, I'm done with that. And like I heard one of the most fascinating things I heard in one of your podcasts is when you prayed to not see, and then you woke up the next day and needed glasses,
Yeah.
right?
Totally weird, right? Yeah.
Super
Yeah,
weird.
that's such a
Super weird.
fascinating conversation, Jane. So interesting. I didn't know that about you. So thank you for sharing that. And I feel like when you're heavy on the T, there's probably like a little more shift to the warrior level of psychic. And that warrior stance is a little more about threat assessment, a little bit more about like the psychic shifts a little bit from the emotional feeling, and more to threat assessment. That's the theory. I don't know if it's true, but it
Yeah.
would be really interesting to kind of study that and see if that's actually the case. And then when you throttle back off the testosterone, you kind of switch back out of threat assessment into more of the feelings the side of the psychic thing, a little more relational, a little more in between the worlds. You know what I mean? Rather than like, protect and scan, which is all warriors have some of that. And I think a lot of the people on the planet, this is my theory again, 75% of the people on the planet carry the warrior archetype, myself included. I was a martial artist. I, you know, I let go of steam at the boxing gym. I still like to do that. Like we have a warrior nature, and when we're looking through that lens of psychic ability, we're doing threat assessment. That's where our psychic is going. But I think if we're more on the female hormone side of things, we're more in between the worlds. So you're talking about dreaming, we're more into the sort of subtle meta energy in our relationships. We're feeling the subtle energies we're having, like our people's okay, or where are the kids, or like, we're kind of, and I think that precognitive stuff, I think of it as, if you think of you're like a spider sitting at the center of a spider web, those webs go out into the future, out sideways into the past. And when something happens, like somebody dying, somebody pregnant, those tickle the outside edge of the web, and we feel it at the center of the web. It sort of creates a disturbance in the force, if you will, that we feel. And that's what our precognitive senses are saying to us. So I don't know if that makes any sense, but that's what I would think about it. Be fun to kind of test that theory.
Yeah, absolutely. And well said. Yeah, and well said. Very cool. You have your own podcast, The Miracle of Healing. And can you speak on, like, after you started running that podcast, how did the kinds of conversations that you choose to have publicly change?
I love my podcast. I've been doing it since 2017. I think it's like 300 episodes that I've done now. And I feel like it's a very synchronistic experience. So I find that, like, whatever issue I have in my personal life, I get a guest who's an expert on that. And I'm like, what is that? That's so cool. You know what I mean? Like, that person has whatever I need, and I'm like, oh, thank you for having that. It feels very personal. And I also just I feel like it gives me an opportunity to meet people I wouldn't normally get a chance to talk to. I don't know, so many of them have become my friends. There's sort of a smallish group of us who write books and have podcasts, and we all support each other's book launches and show up on each other's podcasts. I was just at a conference in Santa Fe with a bunch of people that I know from that world. And I feel so comforted and happy knowing them, right? Like, it's kind of connected me to this working soul group of people that I don't think I would have had an opportunity to meet. It's sort of a beautiful synchronicity, and I don't control it too much. I just kind of feel like, is this person right for my podcast? And it's a yes or a no, you know what I mean? And then some kind of magic happens. So that's what it is for me. Just waiting for the magic and the synchronicity of who shows up.
I love that. I have a synesthetic brain, so I see sound as shapes and colors. And I
That's
feel like
cool.
sometimes I see waves of colors, and humans come to me in those waves too, depending on what shape or what color the universe is kind of flashing at me.
That's great. I love that. That's an amazing gift. And so common. I mean, almost everybody I know who has that is extremely psychic. It's not an average thing. It's rare, but everyone I know who's been that way is super psychic or super artistic or both.
Yeah, Jay's laughing at me because I tell people I'm not a psychic. I'm a medium. I talk to the dead. I'm not psychic. And I say that until I'm blue in the face. I'm not psychic.
That's funny. I don't know. I think medium, of psychic is a big umbrella term that, there's a lot of different kinds of psychics. So a medium is a psychic who specializes in talking to dead people. And it's one of the psychic skills. Yeah. So, it's hard to own your psychic nature fully. And I just invite you to, really invite you to consider the fact that maybe you're actually really psychic.
There you go. That's like denying on an impact. Okay, so can we talk now? This next question / conversation is goofy, but I'm goofy, so
I'm goofy too. So bring
good.
it on.
Thank you. Let's bring some goofiness. So, can we talk about gray people? So there's a TV show called Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in the TV show called Ghost, they're gray, and their greatest wish is to get sucked off, right? And that's what they call it, getting sucked off. And so in the TV show,
Isn't that everybody's greatest wish? I don't know. Maybe it is.
I think maybe. Right there. So, I mean, it's a TV show. So I'm like, that's not real. And then I meet Megan and we started talking about great people. And then he listened to you talk about and you and Megan, both of you, help people move on, right? Or get sucked off is how it occurs in my world, right? And so that TV show kind of is accurate, right?
I mean, I think in a really Hollywoodized version, it is.
Yeah, of course.
And,
of course.
and I have a funny relationship with that because when I was a kid, there was just not a lot of information going on. And I had this like revelatory moment when I snuck into the movie theater. I paid for my ticket, but my parents didn't let me go, but I went anyway to see the movie Poltergeist. I was probably 12. And it was this incredible moment where there's a professional psychic, and I was sitting there going, you can do that. I'm going to do that. That was the moment I decided that I was going to do that. And she gives this little like speech on what a ghost is, why they get stuck, and what do you do about them. And I was like, oh my God, somebody knows something. And it was more than I found in a library. And, so it began like a lifelong love affair with paranormal and TV shows. And I got a lot of my early education from that, watching. And then I went to every paranormal movie, every ghost movie I could. And I got a pretty crazy education. I would say about 50% of it was true. And 50% of it was Hollywood nonsense,
Sure.
And I think like shows like The Ghost Whisperer, it's an oldie, but a classic. Their technical consultant was James Van Praagh, who's an incredibly amazing, true medium. Like he is the real deal. And he was their technical consultant. So especially the first few seasons of that show, I think are really accurate. Like really good. So there's some good education in there. And I mean, I think the TV show Ghost is hysterical. It's like meant to be funny in a comedy, but a lot of, there's sort of an underlying metaphysical truth that they have underneath that, which kind of lends some weight to it. You know what I mean? Even though it's totally funny.
Yeah. And so as people who are not mediums, right, who can't actually, talk to the dead way you guys can, but can we, I mean, maybe I'm a Pollyanna, so, maybe this is too optimistic, but if we have somebody who's passed on, we don't know if they're gray, right? I don't know. Maybe some of my family's gray. I don't know. But if I have a beef with somebody who's dead, could I help them if I forgive them? Or is there anything the living can do to help people get sucked off?
Okay. Well, I'm going to answer the underlying question there. And that is yes. So I always, the gray people, to me, they look like gray, transparent, spirits. They are the spirits of the uneasy dead. Ghosts. They're ghosts. And not everybody who dies becomes a ghost. In fact, it's pretty rare. Real ghosts. Most people make the transition.
That's good to hear. I really like knowing that.
Yeah, most people make the transition. The people that don't are people that died suddenly, died outside their own timeline, murder victims, sudden deaths, crazy, like they didn't expect to die, kind of such a battlefield, sudden traumatic, violent deaths. Sometimes people get stuck. I remember one of the gray people that I talked to, I could always tell they were dead because they look a bit corpsey, truth be told. They look a bit, that's called their dead face. They come in with their dead face, That's what I called it when I was little. And saw this guy who had died in a motorcycle accident. He was not in good shape. And he was like, look at me. And I'm like, dude, yeah, gross,
So they look like he just had an accident?
And so they're coming in their death state. And he was shocked about the sudden and unexpected death, and sort of a young guy, young guys, they think they're going to live forever. Teenagers. He was like, I can't believe that. Can I get a do-over? Can I go back in time and do this again? And I always call crossing over spirits is like ghost therapy. They need therapy, but they don't pay your bill and they don't keep your office hours. But that's what they need. And they need help processing the trauma. And if for me, if I listen and I'm like, yeah, so sorry, that must suck, And he was like, my mom's going to kill me. And I'm like, she's going to be pissed, dude. Like, that was dumb. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. And eventually he kind of was crying and, oh my God, his girlfriend was pregnant and that was going to happen to her and like all the things like, and I just was like, I don't know what it's like to go through that, but it must suck so bad. I'm so sorry that happened to you. And eventually he kind of worked it all out. He needed somebody to listen to him. And they want to offload their feelings, that trauma, the heaviness of their feelings is literally like weights that hold them down in this dimension. And that's why sort of old school ghosts would have chains, chains around them. Those chains represent the bonds or the attachments or the weights that hold them down on the earth plane. And so they need some to like offload that. They need somebody to listen to I call it the witnessing. We do the witnessing where we witness what happened to them. And then they're able to let go and surrender and release. It's a very individual process. Even people who die a relatively understandable death, like expected death, need a little bit of time to get that experience under their belt. Sometimes I see them go right up, but oftentimes it's like 30 to 40 days where they're down here kind of like they want to see who showed up to the funeral. They want to, see like all of what everybody's saying about them. Like, well, wouldn't you want to see who showed up to your funeral and what they all said about you? Yeah, of course you do.
Yeah, I do.
It's actually an important part of your life. It's an important part of your, kind of your life experience isn't finished until that's happened. And then you kind of say, well, how's everybody doing, after you've passed? And then we sort of, we rise up and we kind of disconnect from the earth plane. Some people do it instantly, but a lot of people need you need a minute. You need a minute to get that transition. Talk about a transition to get that under your belt before you really, move on.
Yeah. So if you have a beef with somebody who's dead, forgive them. And
talk to them. I think if you say their name out loud, that's kind of an invocation. It kind of catches their attention. And you're like, hey, Uncle Fred, can you come down here for a minute? Come get over here. And then you say it out loud, like whatever you got to say. And I think writing it works okay too, especially if you read it afterwards. Sometimes you need to get things off your chest. We need to fully process things. And I'll tell you what, a lot of times, many, many times, it's easier to process with somebody once they're dead. That if you have super stubborn relatives or people who just, there was no fixing that when everyone's alive, they may have a much better attitude once they're dead. Because we drop the limiting constraints of the personal self, the egoic self. We stop caring about whether we're right or wrong. We stop holding a grudge. A lot of that, not always, but we just drop those things. And you go back with God, you're back in heaven with the angels. It gives you a whole different perspective. And you're like, oh my God, I was being such a petty jerk. I'm going to let all that go. And now I'm really ready to talk to you. And that's why mediumship is so powerful. That's why it's so healing. Because sometimes you can just have a better conversation with your loved one once they're dead.
Is that why you think people mellow in their old age? Because they're getting
closer to death? I do. I mean, I think some of that is kind of, the natural maturation that hopefully we have, the natural, calming down of our hormonal self that just gives us so much trouble. That wisdom that comes through time and hopefully spiritual opening that comes with time. That's sort of normal. But yeah, I think we mellow with age, and we certainly mellow a lot more after we pass over. It just is like a instant attitude adjustment and perspective change, because you remember, like we started talking about in the very beginning of our time together, the entire universe is made out of love. Love is the most important thing, and all the things that we do to withhold love from each other are just sort of dumb, and it hurts you more, as much as it hurts the other person. We let go of all the pettiness and the egoic self, to be right, to be, we give up a lot of love to be right. Just not that smart.
Most
right?
definitely. Thank you so much for talking to us, bringing your insights, your wisdom, all those nuggets of awesomeness. For our listeners, how can they get tuned in to you? We talked about you having a podcast, education, several books. What's right now one of the some of the best ways to tune to your dial?
So come visit my website, lisacampion.com, and leave me a message. I have a lot of free resources on my website. Send me a message. I read them all. I have a really great YouTube channel that's also full of free stuff. Check out I'm on all the socials, and my podcast is called The Miracle of Healing. We can find it on any podcast station.
It's a good one too. I hope people tune in.
Thanks for catching the Wake Up Way with us.
We hope today sparked something in you, a reminder, a question, or even a deeper breath.
If you're feeling the shift, share this episode, leave us a review, or just keep tuning in. Every wave you catch matters.
And remember, what we focus on actually expands. We are all very deeply connected.